Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the best 15 brawlers in the Brawl Stars meta right now. The balance changes just dropped yesterday. We played the game a ton today and yesterday as well, reaching Masters 3 on the stream yesterday. So I've got a good understanding, I believe. Of course, with the balance changes only being a day ago, we're not going to know the meta completely. So this is more going to be like a prediction video, but a lot of these probably are going to be right just from me just abusing a lot of these brawlers to get to Masters 3. So before we jump into it, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel if you're not already, so you guys get all of the information about the meta, tier list, etc. Without further ado, let's jump into it. So Gray, he's going to be coming in at number 15 in my opinion. He's actually one of the most annoying brawlers in the meta for me, just because of his walking cane gadget is so strong. It got a slight nerf from 18-second cooldown to 20-second cooldown, but that wasn't enough to make him like at least a top 20 brawler in the game, in my opinion. He might even be breaking a top 10, but the reason he's not top 10 for me is because he's only good in knockout and bounty. But those two game modes in particular, I'm banning him pretty much everywhere, because you get to use at least 6 walking cane gadgets in bounty, I would say, and then if you move over to knockout, you can use probably 3 walking cane gadgets per round. And every time, especially on those squishier brawlers, you hit one of those walking cane gadgets, they're only 1 or 2 shots away from death. You're going to be cycling supers a lot more efficiently. He's just such a threat in this meta. His hype charge is really strong as well. There's so much to like about Gray. So before we move into the 14th best brawler in the meta, let's take a look at the honorable mentions. So the first one is Melody. She received a big nerf to a hypercharge rate, but I still think Melody is going to be a really strong brawler, especially for the pros. Lou as well received a slight nerf. He could easily be top 15 as well. Jean, slight nerf. Angelo, still really strong brawler, but only good in bounty and knockout. You've got Hank as well, which a lot of the pros are playing a lot of, but I don't think Hank is that great anymore. The hypercharge is pretty terrible. It's just good for the stat boost now. And then Gus as well. So moving into the 14th best brawler, I went with Carl. So Carl was really breaking the top 10 towards the end of the meta because of his heat ejector spam, and they only got nerfed by a couple of seconds. So I think Carl will still remain probably near a top 10 brawler in this meta, because you can just spam this out like crazy. And the biggest problem is the damage, because if you're spamming it out like crazy, of course it's just stopping people from moving in a certain place, so it's just good for control and area denial. But you're going to hit a lot of these as well, and you can pretty much one-shot so many brawlers if you connect this onto people. So it's such a good gadget. The hypercharge on top of that, which is pretty terrible, but you charge it with 2 supers, so those stat boosts are going to be coming in really handy. I just see Carl playing so much still. I think he's one of the best brawlers easily. Moving into the 13th best brawler in the meta right now, we have Max. So Max didn't receive any nerfs, and Max is still such a big threat, especially for the pro players. The reason why she's so good is because you can pretty much play her into everything. And a good Max is not about completely carrying the team. You're not going to have the best stats, but it's all about enabling your other team's brawlers and just combining, especially with the hypercharge, so you and your teammates can get 75% of your super. There's just so many good plays with Max. You've also got Phase Shifter being such a strong gadget. You can make some really good plays, and it's the fact that as well, there's a lot of mid brawlers in the meta right now, like B for example, maybe like Meeple, a few others, where a really aggressive Max combination is going to be able to counter that out. So she's still going to be one of the best brawlers for pros to play. So moving into the 12th best brawler in this meta, I'm going to go with Buster. So I know a lot of people are going to be thinking straight away, well, his hypercharge isn't actually that good. I never claimed his hypercharge was going to be good, because the 360 is only going to be good in a handful of maps. It's just more so the fact that in knockout particularly, you can actually just farm by just sitting all the way into spawn on some certain knockout maps, and you can farm your hypercharge in 1 round, which is insane when you think about it. So just for that reason, the stat boost, you know, the movement speed, damage, etc., you're going to get yourself into good positions with Buster. And I just think as well, the meta is going to be a lot nicer for him, because so many brawlers got nerfs and he didn't receive any. So when that's normally the case, you know, Buster's going to get pushed up in the meta. I'm just seeing him used a lot more. I think he's a really solid brawler, so just abuse the stat boost at least with Buster. Now moving on to the 11th best brawler in the meta, I've gone with Poco. So Poco's still going to be a really big threat in this meta, mainly because of his gadgets, even though they both got big nerfs. We got Tuning Fork, which went from 16 seconds to 20 seconds, which is his healing gadget. And then Protective Tunes went from an 11-second cooldown to 18 seconds. So some really big nerfs there. I still think it's going to push him at least in the A tier, in my opinion. I'm just seeing him being a really good pick in Hot Zone, in Brawl Hockey, in Brawl Ball, in Gem Grab. He's going to pair with so many different brawlers. For the casual player base, they're not really going to see the value of Protective Tunes, but still that as a gadget is just so strong in the draft format, especially when Ollie is one of the best brawlers in the game. It completely counters out Ollie, it counters Loot, it counters so many different brawlers. So Protected Tune is such a strong gadget for that reason. I still think Poco is going to easily be one of the best brawlers in the game. I'm going to be moving into the top 10 brawlers in the game right now. At number 10, I'm going to go with Chester. So this might be an unpopular opinion. I don't know. I don't know how the community really sees Chester right now. But I personally, even since the hypercharge rate nerf that he received literally instantly as soon as the hypercharge came out, I still think he's going to be one of the better brawlers in the game. He just absolutely has to be. The hypercharge is done broken. It's so incredibly strong. You can one-shot pretty much every single brawler in the game with it. That's just so insane. And it still only takes 3.3 supers to get. If you're facing off against tanks, which is highly likely with this meta, still with it being pretty crazy, you're going to farm a lot. And what the meta's really been missing is those tank counters. And Chester is a fantastic one. The amount of damage that he can provide is just insane. And especially an RNG brawler. And then you've got Candy Beans on top of that, which was already pretty underrated. Spamming out random just buffs every 15 seconds is just insane. So I really think Chester is going to be the brawler that everyone's going to be sleeping on. I'm predicting top 10. Probably even higher for Chester. Moving into the 9th best brawler in the game right now, I'm going to be going with B. So B received a 3-second nerf to her Rattled Hive cooldown, but I don't think that's going to be enough to put her out the meta completely, because again, we're looking for that mid brawler that's going to be able to counter those tanks, and B is that brawler. And then she's got the hypercharge on top of that, and it's still just Rattled Hive. 20 seconds is still pretty good cooldown for her. It's only a 3-second nerf when you think about it, and if you think it's that big of a nerf, to put the gadget cooldown gear on, and it's going to be the same as before the nerf. But just overall, I think the damage output is just insane. She's really good in Brawl right now. A lot of great Brawl maps just play into B's favor, especially in competitive. Hot Zone as well. A lot of open maps where she's going to be able to pop off on. I'm even seeing her in Gem Grab in NA, for example, in the monthly finals. I just don't think she's going to shift out of the meta. Maybe with some of her counters being nerfed as well, like Mr. P, maybe she's even better. Now moving into the 8th best brawler in the meta, I'm sticking with Mr. P. So he's a top 3 brawler in the previous meta. With the hypercharge nerfs, I think he potentially still could be a top 5 brawler in the game. We'll have to see, but I think there's so many problems that they still didn't touch with Mr. P. I know they nerfed the fact that the porters now decay after 10 seconds, which I really like. They're nerfing the movement speed, but I still don't like how quickly they spawn one after another. Then you can also have 2 Mr. P porters at the same time. Well, like 2 of those spawners come out at the same time. And then you've got as well the porter reinforcements gadget didn't receive a cooldown nerf, which again, it's not like the craziest gadget. You can just one-shot it, but it's still wasting the opponent's ammo on top of that. So it's just so much spam, which I just can't shy away from. Also, the hypercharge rate didn't get nerfed as well. You can still get this pretty quickly against some tanks. And the problem with Mr. P is that even, again, those tankier brawlers should be able to run him down, but now you're going to be farming the hypercharge, which is just so broken. Yeah, I still see him easily being a top 10 brawler in the game, in my opinion. The only game modes I won't really use him on is Knockout and Bounty, which is weird. That's where you used to use him on before. Use him outside of that, really, because you're never going to get a hypercharge, and without the hypercharge, he's terrible. So I still think the purple button is really good. So now moving on to the 7th best brawler in the game right now, I've gone with Janet. So if you guys watch any of my streams, you'll know that I just have a hatred for Janet, mainly because she's so good into everything. Even the tanks, like I guess you can run her down in like Brawl, for example, but she's still gonna farm hypercharge, and that hypercharge mechanically is so busted. It's absolutely insane. By the time you've used a hypercharge super, by the time you've landed, probably like 1, 2, maybe even just cycle through to your next super, because of how easy it is to get consistent damage and consistent kills with this hypercharge. You then just got some decent damage output with her main attack. You've also got a really annoying gadget where you can just keep spamming, stopping the opponents from regenerating, and also revealing their position in bushes. She's so versatile. She can play as a mid in Gem Grab, as a lane. She can just fulfill every purpose, really, in the meta. She's always been that type of brawler. When she's good, she's just too versatile. When she's bad, she just doesn't have enough damage output. There's never really been a meta where she's balanced, but right now, she's definitely one of the best brawlers in the game. Now, moving into the 6th best brawler in the game, I'm still sticking with Juju. So, Juju received a small nerf to her Elementalist gadget. So, when you get the shield, normally it was a 50% damage reduction shield. It got nerfed to 30%, which definitely has helped her, well, made her a little bit less toxic. But the problem with Juju is still that Gree. It just has so much HP, it eats so much ammo, and then by the time that Gree has been destroyed, you probably have another one. Also, because as a thrower, fundamentally, of course, he always has the advantage. You can shoot over walls, and she's never really vulnerable against assassins or tanks. That's normally the thrower's counter. So she's good against tanks. She's good against squishy brawlers. There's hardly really any counter. She started to fall off a little bit in the previous meta because there's so much berry and poco and just so much purple button. But now she's again back into the meta because there's been so many balance changes. She's still a top 10 brawler easily. Now we're going to be moving on to the top 5 brawlers in the game, and we're going to be starting off with Stu. So I'm pretty certain with this top 5, to be honest, and Stu is still a staple to this meta because they only nerfed his speed zone turret, which was a good nerf. It only lasts 10 seconds now. But the biggest problem with Stu, in my opinion, is he has a lot of HP and his hypercharge rate is still too quick. He can still just fly around the map with ease, especially a good Stu player. He can just absolutely glide. The thing that's really stopping him is because there's a lot of poker and berry in the meta, so he can get countered in the draft pretty easily. But still, he's so versatile in terms of hot zone, in terms of brawl ball, gem grab, brawl hockey. All of these game modes in ranked, he's just such a good brawler. And again, it's Stu. Stu always has good 1 versus 1 matchups. He's always been a really solid brawler in the meta, but that hypercharge is just making him one of the best brawlers, absolutely. Now we're going to be moving into the 4th best brawler in the game. We have Meeple. So I know the common consensus here is that Meeple probably isn't a good brawler because you're probably going into Brawl Ball with randoms or gem grab, etc. And there's just so many Mortis players, there's so much aggression. But when you're in ranked and when you have good teammates and you make a good composition, Meeple feels unstoppable at the moment. He's so incredibly strong, even with 2 gadget nerfs to both of them. One of them going from 20 seconds to 22, which is Dice Gadget, and then Rage Quit getting a 2-second cooldown nerf as well. His gadgets are still unbelievably strong. The Dice Gadget is so busted, it's so good, especially paired with a super. It's a free kill every single time. It's just free control. It's just free forcing the opponents back all the way into spawn, especially if you have a couple of brawlers maybe that lack the range. Well, you can just use his Dice Gadget to get into the opponent's face. He has really good damage. His super can be really toxic as well, just guaranteeing your kills, and especially when you don't have a wall breaker, just throw this super, and it pairs with snipers really well as well. There's so much to like about Meeple. His main attack literally you can't miss it. You really can't miss it. So his burst damage potential is insane. In pro play, he's absolutely a top 5 brawler. Now we're going to be moving into the 3rd best brawler in the game right now. I'm going to predict Mo. And I know a lot of people are going to be flaming and angry at this decision, but I really think he's a top 5 brawler in the game minimum right now. Again, this might be an overreaction, who really knows, but I'm telling you, I have won every single game with Mo, from Masters 2 to Masters 3. I think I'm on like a 6 or 7 win streak with him on multiple different game modes and multiple different scenarios. Even some tougher matchups, Mo was able to win with a great kill to death ratio as well. So the reason why he's so good, guys, I know he was F tier before and unusable, but a 25% buff to his reload speed is absolutely bizarre. Of course, with a reload speed buff, it buffs everything. It buffs his damage output, it buffs his supercharge rate, it buffs just his overall zoning because his main attack is just so crazy in terms of wall peeking. There's so much to like about this buff. 25%. Again, these numbers, whenever I think of a good buff, it's normally at least like 8%, 10%. But 25%, of course, it's got to leapfrog him up the meta. And especially with so many nerfs as well. Mo is such a versatile brawler. I'm telling you, try out Mo. I really think he's a top brawler in the game again. And yeah, we're going to go back to the rat meta. We're going to be moving into the 2nd best brawler in the game right now. I'm going to go with another hot take. I think it's going to be Finks. Finks just seems like he's going to be that type of brawler in this meta right now. So again, he received 2 buffs, and the first one was to his movement speed. So in the past, movement speed buffs have actually been really good. You think of Shelly. I know she went from normal to very fast, but just still giving her the fast made her meta for a very long time. And then you've got the reload speed buff, which was like a 20% buff. Again, think of the numbers. 10% is always pretty good. 20% is absolutely insane. And I've been playing a lot of Finks as well, been seeing the pros play a lot of Finks, and it just seems to be working everywhere. Of course, with a reload speed buff, you're just going to be getting more supers, dealing more damage, just being more of a threat. And then you've also got his back to the Finkster gadget, the better max gadget. Is actually really good because what you can do, you can go aggressive. When you're about to, I don't know, take a super to the face or some high damage, you can just gadget back in time and then get 3 pieces of ammo back if you time it correctly. So it's a really strong gadget. He's got good range, he's got decent damage. His super, of course, is one of the best supers in the game if you time it correctly. There's just so much to like about Finks in my opinion. I think you got to try it. I know he was terrible before, but he has potential to be one of the best and most versatile brawlers in the game. We're going to be moving into the best brawler in the game right now. I'm going to go with Ollie. So I know a lot of people have been saying that Ollie isn't the strongest brawler. He can get countered, etc. Well, he can, but a good Ollie can really be the difference maker. So he received 2 nerfs. He received a nerf to his supercharge rate, going from 5 to 6 hits, and he received a couple second nerf to his jump gadget regulate. But overall, I still think Ollie's such a strong brawler in the meta. Again, he's one of the ones where I only really consider banning when the opponent has first pick in ranked, because it just takes Ollie just that one play. You super in, you gadget, and you're able to hypnotize for like 3.5 seconds. Still, that mechanic is just so incredibly strong. Just being one of the tankiest brawlers in the game with a dash ability, it's just way too good in the meta. So I think Ollie's still going to be one of the best brawlers in the game, in my opinion. I think it absolutely has to be a top 10 at least, even with these nerfs. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know whether you agree, disagree with any of these. A few of them are going to be hot takes, of course, but I think I'm pretty right in my predictions about Mo and Finks. Maybe, I don't know, we'll see in a couple of days when I do my tier list. So that's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.